Hey guys, today I'm going to be walking you through how to create a paper polyhedron using a traditional modification of kirigami, where we use folding and cutting paper to transform a flat plane into a three-dimensional form. This is what the finished polyhedron will look like. You can see that I've done this just on magazine paper. You can use any paper that you have, any size, as long as it's a square. So what you'll need to have handy are two square sheets of paper, like I've got here. These are the same. You'll need some kind of glue. It can be Elmer's glue all or a glue stick, and you'll also need a pair of scissors. If you don't have glue, you can just use tape or whatever you have handy to kind of keep your project together. All right, step one. I'm going to start with just one sheet of paper. Whatever I want to be on the inside of my polyhedron form, I'm going to have facing up to start. So that's going to be the white because I want the pattern to be on the outside. So step one is just going to be to fold your paper in half. Like so. And then I'm going to take the bottom edge and fold that in to my crease I just made, and the top edge into the crease I just made, like so. Now I'm going to repeat those same steps, just going the opposite direction. So fold the paper in half, making sure that I line up my corners the best that I can. And I also want to make sure that I'm not flattening out the creases I just made with my hands. I'm just kind of pressing where I want to make a new crease. Common mistake that students make when they're first learning how to do this is to rest their hands on the folds they've previously made. And that flattens everything out so that the paper kind of loses the memory that we've just imprinted in it via the crease. Okay, so once your paper looks like this, you've got 16 boxes, and all of these folds are what we call valley folds, which means they go down into the crease and then the paper comes back up. We're going to flip it over. And now all of my creases are mountain folds. In other words, they're pointing up toward the sky. So at this point, I'm going to turn my paper so that it's more like a diamond in relation to me, and I'm going to begin my series of diagonal folds. So I'm going to fold it in half diagonally by going corner to corner, like so. And then I'm going to repeat that step corner to corner in the other direction, making sure I line up my corners and that I don't smush all of my previous creases with the weight of my hand. So now you'll have something that looks like this. Notice that my diagonal folds are valleys. They point down and away from me. But all of my vertical and horizontal folds are mountains, meaning they point up toward the sky. I'm now going to finish adding 4 additional diagonal folds, and I'll do that by taking each corner of my square and folding it into the center. Okay, so that's it for all of my folds. Take note again that all of my diagonal folds, including these 4 around the outside and these 2 large diagonal creases, are all valley folds. Meanwhile, all of my vertical and horizontal folds are all mountain folds. So an easy way to check if you're doing the steps correctly is to make sure that your verticals and horizontals are behaving opposite of whatever your diagonal creases are doing. Next, I'm going to need my scissors. I'm going to make 4 cuts on my paper, and these cuts will start at the center of each edge of my paper. They're going to follow along one of my central vertical creases just until they touch that first horizontal crease, like so. I'm going to cut right down that line, right there. And you want to be careful not to cut too far or to stop too soon before that crease. You want it to end just right on that crease. And I'll do that on each side. Okay, and that's it for my cutting and my folding for my first paper. I'm just going to go ahead and repeat all of those steps on my second sheet of paper now. And then when I come back, we'll talk about how to assemble your polyhedron. Okay, so now I've got my 4 cuts. Both of my papers are ready. They've been folded, ready for assemblage. So, as I mentioned before, we're paying attention to mountains and valleys. My vertical and my horizontal folds, or the ones that go straight up and down and straight side to side, are mountains. That's the side we want to have facing up. And that means that all of my diagonals, right, the 4 that go around the outside and the 2 that go across the center, are valleys, right? Goes down toward the crease and then back up. You want to make sure that this is the side that's facing up. Then what you're going to do is identify each vertex or each point where all of those creases intersect, and there are 5 of them. There's one here, 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 and then of course one in the middle. And what I'm going to do is place my hand underneath of my paper and pop up each vertex. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then what you can see is my paper's already starting to kind of want to come together into this ball. And this is my first polyhedron form. It's going to have a hole on one side. It'll be enclosed solid on the other. So what I can do if I want to is just put a little bit of glue underneath these flaps and tack them so that it stays in place. I'm going to go ahead and skip that step because I feel pretty confident in assembling this, but if this is your first time, then you're going to want to glue those flaps so that they stay steady for you. I'm going to assemble my second paper. I'm going to take my first polyhedron and take the center of the hole and line it up with the center of the form on my second polyhedron, like so. Kind of shimmy that on there. And now I have created my enclosed form. And if I have folded and cut everything correctly, then these will align in such a way that you can't really tell there's two separate sheets of paper. We want to create the illusion that we folded it all from one clean sheet. And that will just come with experience and accuracy in your folding and your cutting. The very last step now is just to glue this together. I will say that when you're gluing, you want to make sure that you are using a very small, thin layer of glue. Excuse me. A little bit goes a long way here. And that you are taking the time to really press it into place. Students tend to lose points in the gluing part of the project because they put too much glue, causing the paper to buckle or the glue to kind of squeeze out the sides and get everything all sticky. Or the other thing that students do when they're gluing is they rush through it. So they don't really take the time to align the faces properly and hide that interior polyhedron. Or they don't rub the glue and they walk away while the glue is still drying. And what'll happen is the paper will slide, and then set up in the wrong spot. So you want to make sure that you stay with it, you hold it until you really feel it kind of suction into place. And I'm just going to repeat this on all of my overlapping flaps. That's it. There's my polyhedron.